All right, guys, welcome back to episode 2 of The Ride. Appreciate you guys joining back for another episode. Today's interview was with Coach Anthony Kelly, a head coach of the PLL California Redwoods. We had a great discussion. We talked about player development, how he goes about, coaching the top 1% of our sport. You're talking about guys across the board at attack with Kavanaugh, Ryder Garnsey, Dylan Malloy, midfield defense with Chris Fake, and a lot of guys on that side of the ball. We got down to kind of the nuances between coaching college and the professional league. When you talk about, a short shot clock, how should you strategize around things like that? We talked about Faceoff development. Obviously, Coach Kelly being a great Faceoff guy himself in his time. Who gave him problems on the face-off unit, what to do when you do not have a great face-off unit, how do you strategize kind of winning it back and things like that. We did get down to one instance where Quinn Kesnick was catching Coach on the sideline. It became like a viral clip, so I got a little bit from Coach there at the end of the episode around that. We talked about OSU as well, so it was really a jam-packed episode here. His work with Resolute Lacrosse as well, and the work he's doing in the box game. So just a fantastic one, man. Really awesome discussion. Hopefully you guys find some value in it. And as always, enjoy the ride. All right, Anthony Kelly, welcome in to the show. Coach Kelly, appreciate you joining us. Thank you for taking the time. We'll talk for an hour here. It'll be a great convo. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Just hitting I guess there's never really a slow time of year, but slower time of year. Let's call it that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we were actually talking before when we were scheduling the call. You said, "Hey, I got to push it back 30 minutes." We got, some calls with the Redwoods guys, some like postseason talk, and I'm interested, man. How'd that go?
Yeah, it's been good. It's just something we decided to roll out. I don't know if many guys do it or if anybody really, but we're just scheduling 30-minute slots, 30, 40-minute slots for the guys to hop on with the coaches. And, I'm doing all of them, obviously for good reason, but, I have Collins get on with the D guys and Box getting on with the O guys. And, really just giving the guys an opportunity to speak their mind and just talk about the season a little bit and highs, lows. I think it's a great opportunity for them to give us feedback as a new staff, just on things they liked, things if they feel like there's an area of improvement. I think it's as important for us to take feedback as it is for them. And, it just gives us an opportunity for them to just speak about how they played,
Sure.
how they felt like they played for the year, and then gives us an opportunity to give them a little feedback on what we felt like, they did this year and kind of set expectations for next year. So.
Yeah, we're going to jump into the Redwood season and kind of the recap there. I am interested. I don't want to peek fully behind the curtain. You guys are doing your thing as a coaching staff, but any specific things that stood out to you? Hey, one or two players saying we want to change this, or we really liked this. What stood out?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's been really cool, hearing the guys. Obviously, we had a lot of rookies, a lot of first-year guys, so they're not going to have a ton of things to, cross-reference it to, past experiences. But those guys have all been super positive, and it sounds like they had a great experience, and they said that there's pretty significant buzz just around that within the league for guys having a good time and just having fun with us, when they talk to their buddies. So obviously that makes us feel like we're doing something right. And the veteran guys talked a lot about how they enjoyed just the focus on culture, and that was my main focus coming in year one, was just the ability to walk in there and look at a group that hadn't had a ton of success, right? And knowing that, so the veteran guys hadn't won in a while and hadn't really felt that, that winning experience. And then the new young guys, they don't know any better, right? So, you hope that you can take the older guys that want to win and they want to have success, and you got young guys that are just willing to buy in. And, we came in and, I took a risk with the guys, and, I had them read a book, and, I knew that kind of coming in. I'm like, I called my coaches. I was like, guys, I want to have them read a book. And they were like, all right, on board. And, it's one of those things where it's like, you can have the veteran guys either be like, no, I'm not doing that. Or like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, or, it's
sure.
like, so that could easily blow up in your face. But I had the guys that they
What book
immediately
was it?
bought in. I'm sorry.
What book was it?
It was called The Energy Bus by John Gordon.
Oh yeah.
And, it's funny because Bachlet lives in Florida. He lives in Lauderdale, or he lives in Jacksonville, and that's where Gordon lives. And organically, they've just kind of connected, and now they're pickleball partners. So they're like really good friends, and they hang out like every week. And so John actually did multiple calls with our team. So he did Zoom calls with our group, and at training camp, he got on for about an hour and a half with us, and we did our, you know, just our planning for the year and coming up with who we wanted to be and what kind of team we wanted to be. And I think that was pretty impactful.
John's got to be the most unique and best teammate of all time to have, just like in any sport, but especially pickleball, where you're just like, hey man, talk me up, give me that motivation.
Sure, right, Mr. Positive, right? So so he was great for us, especially when we hit a little lull in the season there where we lost. We went on that losing skid there, and it was great. And he did a call. I remember Bach had him on his phone up on the bus, and he was zooming into the boys on their way to practice. So that was pretty cool to have him.
The PLL is unique in so many ways, man. And I actually really like the product. There's a ton of people that have their own opinions on everything that's gone around, even from the MLL days. Obviously, with your playing time there, you had a front row seat to the MLL's growth. I'm so interested as a coach about building culture in that environment, right? It's not your typical like high school coach. You got the guys there. Sometimes you're even working at the school. College, same thing. You're getting them all the time. How do you work on that culture with the PLL schedule and all these different things? It's got to be one of the most unique.
It is. It's hard. And I think to your point, I think that the play of the PLL is at an all-time high. I think the play and the skill and the caliber that people are witnessing right now, I think is at an all-time high. I really do. And I lived it for a long time, and, coming back around it now, the skill level is just incredible. And I think with only 8 teams and the way that it's structured right now, it's so competitive. And, when you look at teams and you look at the margin of victory, it's so small. And even in games where a team wins by 4, if you watch the game, like the score is the score, but the team didn't win by 4. They just barely won, and it's just the way it goes. And it can turn so fast. So I think from that side, I think it's great and it's exciting to be back in. But when you look at, to your point of the cultural swing on it, it is hard, right? Because guys are working jobs during the week, and, you buy weekends and you have time off. So how do you continue to build off that? And I think it started with really focusing at training camp on valuing our time together and trying to ensure that, guys are communicating and getting to know one another, and trying to really kind of break down that barrier of people being guarded and, coming together as a team as quickly as possible. And then I think, during the week, we do a standing Zoom call on Wednesday nights where, it's just an opportunity for us to get a little FaceTime and just reconnect with one another. And then we have some breakouts from there between our D and our O. And, there's constant chatter going with those guys within those groups. So whether it's messaging coming in from the coaches or messaging coming in from the players. And then, during the week, our guys are really, really good at just staying in contact. And that's like a point of emphasis for us of, get with your boys, check in with your boys during the week. Like whether it's just, hey, how's your workout? What are you doing today? Whatever it is. Like, we have a goal to reach out to at least 3 guys a week during the week. And then the next week you touch base with another 3 that are different from the week prior. And I think that goes a long way with guys getting to know each other. And then another part of it was at the beginning of the year, we stirred it up a little bit with the rooming list and things like that, where, I know a lot of veteran guys will have a tendency just to get with another veteran guy, or, hey, I've been roommates with this guy for 5 years. I'm going to continue to be his roommate. Where, we had Dylan Malloy staying with Josh Balkersell. So we had the oldest guy and the youngest guy, rooming together, which is, I don't think you're seeing that on any other team. And those guys are like best buds now. So, little stuff like that. And then I like that. We made it a really big priority for our guys. Like when we look at our roster, there's only one guy that's married. We have no one that has kids. right? So we look at the group and it's like, there is zero reason why any of you are not staying in the city that we are in and hanging out together after the game. And they were all like, oh, I guess that kind of makes sense, you know? So we kind of had like a standing, not like a hard rule that you had to, but it was like heavily encouraged that everybody stays the day of the game and everyone goes out and has some beers together. And I think that really helped us, especially late in the season. And
Yeah.
you know, I think it's safe to say that our group is, you know, I like to think we have the tightest locker room in the league, and I think if you ask guys, most of the players would agree with that, and I think a big part of it is just based on the things that we did.
Yeah, I think a lot of people preach, team culture and things like that, especially when they hop onto a show like this. But when you do things like pair the oldest guy with the youngest guy and you make it mandatory, not mandatory, but basically, hey, you need to go out with the team. Those are all little small things that make a big impact, man. That's really cool. I do want to talk about the season. We're going to get down to like the nitty gritty. I love talking X's and O's and player development and how you look at, coaching different players and all of that. But you guys so you won 2, you lost 5, and then you went on a 4-game win streak. And then you played in the PLL semifinals there with the Outlaws. What changed as far as getting that team on track from kind of, that stumble, not necessarily out the gate, but early in the season?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think coming out of training camp, I think there was value in being a young team coming out of training camp, right? So you stay at training camp, it's a long, week and a half you're together, and then you go right into your first game. So I feel like our guys had a lot of energy and were juiced up just off being a new group. We had a lot of rookies out there, kind of riding that high. And, I don't think our guys were as tired necessarily as some of the other teams coming into game 1. And, I think we had some success early. I think we played really well in that first game. And I mean, you know how it goes. There's a lot of teams still just, you're figuring things out. The
Sure.
first 4 games there's a lot of, managing your personnel and figuring out lineups. And then you have the draft guys coming in. And so I think a lot of that is dictated upon what players, like for instance, this year, it's like, did you have guys in the Final Four? Did you have guys that were in the playoffs, right? Because those guys were pushed back a little bit, missed training camp, missed some of that stuff. And I think we ran into that after 2 games. We went into game 3 and we lost to the Archers by 1 in Philly. So really close game, literally down to the final shot that we had. Sam English took a shot. And, during that game, if you remember, we lost Chris Merle. And, that was a massive, massive loss for our organization that, really didn't get talked about. And, Chris, he's our leader on and off the field. I mean, he's as good as they get when it comes to that stuff, and also just a phenomenal player, right? So we kind of had that 1-2 punch with him and Tevlin as our, kind of leaders on the defensive end of the field, and losing Merle was just a heartbreaker for us. And, I think the next week we got back together and we kind of lost our voice of the locker room a little bit. And, that's a huge piece there. And, a couple other things. And then, to that point, yeah, I mean, we kind of got on a little losing streak. We were trying to tweak some things. We were trying to find, what we thought was the right lineup. And, we had to shuffle a couple guys around. And, I think there were some positives that came of that, though, too, right? Because we're trying to figure out who we are. So it allowed some other guys to step up. It allowed some guys to, get a new voice in the locker room with a young group, kind of figuring out who they are and what we are. And, we had Kastner come back too, which was unbelievable. And we thought, all right, big rangy kid, he's playing college hoops. He could be a absolute, just creating chaos between the lines as an LSM. So we started him up there. And then we realized that he's actually more comfortable and much better playing down low. So when we lost Merle, and we had him there, and then, we lost Arden with an injury, and we were able to shuffle him back. And then we took BJ, we took a pull out of his hand and we gave him a short stick to kind of replace Merle. And then we picked up Reese on a trade off the, so it was like we had to shuffle things around. But I think when it was said and done, it allowed us to really figure out our personnel. And I think in year 1, a big part of this league is just figuring out who you are, what you have. And, that excites me, more than anything, is that we were trending and peaking at the right time. And I can't wait to get back with the guys. I can't wait for Champ Series to just get with them again. It's been a lot of fun this week doing those calls, spending time with the guys and having some laughs and reflecting on the year. And then, I can't wait to go into training camp where, I was talking to Bachlet, and it's like, dude, we were at training camp, like coming out of training camp, like at the very end, sitting around a table, coming up with our 25-man roster.
Mm-hmm.
So it took us that whole week to figure out who our personnel is.
Who are you cutting down from? What number were you cutting down from?
30
Okay.
is what we have at camp. So it's not terribly difficult, but you still got to figure out who's who and what you're capable of, right? Some of these other teams, I look over and it's like Boston's working on their man up. It's like they got their guys, and it's like those guys are, all the veteran teams that have been around together are game planning at training camp, where, we're trying to work in our game planning, but we're also trying to give guys opportunities to compete and play.
I want to go back to that Kastner piece that you mentioned. What about the comfortability level? Let me rephrase this question. Did you talk with Cole, and was he saying, I'm a little bit more comfortable down there? And why do you think a player like Cole Kastner had trouble playing in the midfield as opposed to at close? Was it?
He had trouble. I wouldn't say he had trouble.
Yeah.
I think it's all the guys are great, man. They're willing to do
Sure.
whatever, and they want to play. And what was also tricky was that he actually pulled his hamstring at training camp, so he didn't play in game one, right? So it was like again, we're figuring things out, and we're trying to figure out who's who and what's what. Man, I've said that probably 5 times already. It's like we're working through it. So then we get him back, and it's like, all right, where do we put him? We get him back right when Merle goes down.
Got it.
Right, so we take a pull out of BJ's hand, and we actually put Cole in at LSM is what we did. So that was even before Reese. Then when Arden went down, we shifted Cole back and plugged Reese in there to manage that situation. So
got it.
Really, it was part of what our team needs were, and I think he did great when he was at LSM. I think that he is just a natural down low defenseman, and has unbelievable closing ability. And I don't think there's a guy in the league that wants to play against Cole Kastner, just based on the fact that he's rangy and tough, and he covers so much ground, and he's got great footwork for a big guy.
Yeah, that's a great breakdown. I appreciate that. I'm fascinated with that, difference. There's a lot of guys out there around the nation that, as high schoolers or even college, like maybe you are a close defender, you don't even know it. You know what I mean?
Well, look at BJ Ferrer. I mean, we asked him to drop and he's not the biggest guy. And we took away his biggest tool and asked him to pick up a short stick. And, it wasn't like he was going to be like, nah, I don't play short stick. He's like, yeah, whatever you guys need, I'll figure it out. And I think that to your point, I think that's a great lesson for young kids. And that's something that we preach to our guys here all the time. And, I think, not to get off topic, but, we're big in the box game with our Resolute program. And that allows like D guys, for instance, to get comfortable with a shorty and then showcase yourself and have that ability. Like I have a young man, his name's Nate Smith, and he's at Providence right now, played for me. He's a freshman there. And, I think he's going to be a phenomenal Division I lacrosse player. And when those guys were recruiting him, he's a close defenseman. But when I'm on my rotation of my players, all my D guys that are out, I have them pick up a short stick, and they run short stick D midi. And he also plays box, so he's very comfortable with the short stick. And coach is watching him play, and he watches him for a half as a down low guy, and then he picks up a shorty, and he's on man down with the short stick. He's running the field, he's running transition, and it's like that opens up a whole other layer of what your capabilities are, which just makes you that much more appealing to a college coach. If you have the ability to be versatile. And now when you get to the PLL, a lot of our decision making is based on that. You have to have the ability to put somebody in a different position if there's an emergency. You're only dressing 19 guys. It's like somebody goes down, it's like, what do you do? You gotta shuffle things around. So
with the shot clock and the way the PLL is run these days, the days of the pole without any stick skill or very minimal stick skill and just a tough guy and just a one-on-one defender, do all these guys need to be able to like sling it like crazy?
I mean, pretty much. I think it just is another separating thing. Like if you're It's I would say no, they're not gone,
Yeah,
but it definitely helps if you do more than one thing. I mean, you look back. I mean, you look at like a guy like Lee Zink, right? Like I played with Lee forever. Lee's arguably one of the best defensemen of all time down low. Lee was really good at just doing his job. I mean, I remember times where he would take the ball away and kick it to the goalie. He'd kick it to Schwartzman. He wouldn't even pick it up, where I think I saw him cross the midfield
dude.
line like 3 times, all the time I played with him. And so I think it just depends if like what you're really good at, but then you could be a guy. I think it's like choosing the right spots. Like I look at a guy like Mike Manley, right, who's been around for a long time, big, tough, defenseman that's played in the league for a long time. Doesn't cross the midline as much as he used to, but he's still really capable. When he does, he's a major threat. So I mean,
Yeah,
that's just like one example of a guy. Um, but I do think if you're a guy like an LSM, like if you're like a Pacino, right? I mean, he's a guy that you have to treat basically like an offensive midi.
sure.
So when you have somebody that demands that respect, I think it changes your game planning for those situations, those people. And you have to make sure that you're able to, cover that transition and have those rotations and make sure your middies are getting back in the hole. And that's where I think, to your point about the X's and O's, I mean, I love that side of it. I love the pro league, and I love the little like nuances and things that you got to talk about in planning for every game has to be different, right? You have to treat every
Yeah.
team differently, and you have to treat every guy that's on the field differently week in and week out.
What are you coaching primarily? Because I do have a question on this scouting and the way that
Yeah,
you can. I'm a matchup based coach myself. I love getting the right matchups. It's a lot easier in high school when you have two guys that you have to stop. I was looking at that Denver Outlaws game. I was like, how the hell
yeah,
do you go into a game saying Bernhardt, Kavanaugh, O'Neill? Like what the hell do you even do?
yeah. I mean, listen, every game is that way. I mean, obviously that team is highlighted with a lot of firepower, but I mean, you go through every roster and it's like there's matchup nightmares everywhere. So I think that's like just just doing your homework, man.
Yeah,
It's like you got to do your homework. You gotta listen to your players. I think those guys. I think it's really important to take feedback from the guys that either went to college with those guys, played against those guys for 4 years. Understanding matchups, what guys are comfortable with, and then watching film and building your game plan out accordingly. And
what
I think Collins does a phenomenal job. I was going to say Chris Collins, our D coordinator. He does a phenomenal job with understanding our personnel. And I was lucky to have Chris. As a guy, he's been with the Redwoods from day one, so he super dialed into our personnel, and the guys have a ton of respect for him, which definitely helped year one, which allowed me to help Bachlet on the front end of the field. So from
got it?
where I spent the majority of my time, it was helping on the offensive end with Bach and a first year coach coming in to just help him feel comfortable there.
Yeah, that Outlaws game, the semifinal PLL there was a close game, like right up until the end. What was the game plan going in for you guys on both the offense and the defensive side? I guess you just said that you're primarily over there on offense, but I would love to know a little bit of details behind the
Yeah,
scenes.
it's interesting. I mean, that's a great group, and obviously they deserve to win that game. I got nothing but respect for that group as a whole, and Sudo is one of my favorite people in the sport. I played for Sudo and Jock, and I was teammates with Boltus. So I mean, I love those guys. Um, and when you look at that game, Denver, in my opinion, is one of the most dangerous transition teams, and a big part of that is their ability to have their poles get up and out. So what they take advantage of is when there's a turnover or any of their poles are in the rotation and they're up high, they take off, and they love when their close D guys can get out because when off a turnover, now you have an attackman guarding a D guy that doesn't want to cross the midline. Well, those guys want to get up and out, and that allows their middies to sub. So it's really important that you approach it the right way, and you can't have your own middies just turn and bail, because if you do that, you're going to get hurt. And that hurt us the first game we played them. Part of that was it was our very first game as a group, and my first game in the league, and you watch film and you start looking at things. So a big part of our game plan was not to get beat in transition, and I don't think we got beat in transition in that game at all, which was great. offensively things kind of stalled out, and I think a big part of that is TD got in a little bit of a rut, and um, I think didn't have his best day, which, I mean, nothing against TD. I mean, the guy had a phenomenal year. We rode him all
60%, I
season long.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Faceoff man of the year. I mean, he was great. And again, he didn't have a bad day. It just there was a window there where he lost a few in a row. I think there were a couple of jumps. He's not going out for the next one. It's almost a guaranteed win. And they were playing a little make it take it. And our D got a little worn down, and we didn't have opportunities. And when that happens, the O has a tendency to get impatient and take some bad shots. And we had a few of those, and just didn't get in much rhythm up front. But I think looking at that game again, we swung Kastner over to guard Kavanaugh, and I mean, I think he did an unreal job on Cav. I think Cav might have had a man up goal maybe in that game.
He did that back in the day too when UVA was
well, we knew
Notre
that
Dame.
too coming in, and I knew that from Chris. Chris told me that the hardest matchup he's ever had was going against Kastner, and I was like, well, what's your brother think of him? He's like, oh, he doesn't like him either. I said, perfect. So we put him on him, and he did great. And honestly, quietly, Conlon, he took Wiz out of the game down there too. And I think Brendan O'Neill just was doing O'Neill things. And I mean, when you watch the game, I mean, Fake he's our dog, man. He's our number one guy, and I think Fake, even there were moments where he was playing great defense, and I mean, O'Neill had that step back too. And I mean, I think he's the only guy in the world that can shoot that shot, and it's like, you watch it and it's like, it's not even bad defense. It's just a guy making plays on the other side. So, I don't think Fake had a bad day. I think O'Neill had a great day. And then I think we had some breakdowns that we normally didn't have. They beat us with some guys that we didn't really expect them to beat us with. And, again, hats off to those guys. It's all part of the game.
How do you go into a game guarding somebody like Bernhardt, who admittedly I think he took some time away from the game? He's not the sharpest, but he's still like one of the fastest guys out there. How do you deal with that speed?
Yeah, I mean, you try to manage it as best you can, and it's like, there's going to be moments where you're going to get beat. And, there's going to be times where, I think with a guy like that, you want to try to force him to uncomfortable spots, right? So I think he has certain tendencies, areas that he wants to get to. And it's like, if you can force guys to get to areas they don't necessarily want to get to, then that's when they take bad shots or not, high percentage shots. And sometimes you can, manage that a little bit. I think when you play any great players, like, those guys are going to score. It's just trying to take a couple of them off the board, right?
Yeah. From a philosophy standpoint, you said you were more, on the offensive side. So let's talk a little bit of that. What's your style? I know you got your offensive coordinator there as well. Mm-hmm. So what were you guys trying to accomplish?
Yeah, it was funny because, coming in, I love like just the run and gun mentality where everybody has a green light, whether you're a pole or a D midi, and we came out of the gate the first two games where we were really playing that way, and it worked, and we were connecting and getting transition in the right spots, and then we got into game 3, 4, 5, and we got a little sloppy, and I don't know if it was just guys trying to do too much maybe, and then I think a little bit of it was after us not having a little success there, guys trying to just continue to do too much and just trying to like get out of their comfort, meaning trying to have D middies and D guys trying to contribute too much on the O end. And it's like, we got to go back to keeping it simple, right? So we took a big step back, and it was like, we got to go back to doing the things that we're good at individually and focus on our roles there, and choosing the right opportunities. So we hit the brakes there a little bit. And, it was funny too, because we came out and we were, I think at one point, maybe after game 2, I think we were leading the league in assists, and then we kind of dropped, where at the end of the season, I think we were the last team in assists. Well, I think there were two different things going on there. I think number one, the style of players that we have. We don't necessarily have like a Jeff Teat, or, we don't have like a true kind of feeder and quarterback of our offense. When you look at our guys, you got a Malloy that's a head down Dodgers, very, very, deliberate way that he plays, and he's a volume shooter, and Kavanaugh, who likes to have the ball in his stick, more so than feeding. And, Garnsey's similar to that too. And so from that side, it was, we had a unique attack unit that we had to work with. And then also just a new group across the board. It takes time for a man up unit to come together, in just my opinion on it, and kind of mesh and really figure out, who's who and what's what. And we're shuffling our lineup, shuffling that through. And I think next year we'll be a lot better there. But when you have the lowest producing man up in the league, generally man up goals are coming off assists, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. So our assisted goals dropped. And I think a big part of it was, you can look at the numbers, but there's a heavy correlation between having a lower producing man up and, the carryover of not having assists. So I never got hung up on that, as long as we're scoring goals, which we were doing, especially late in the season.
Yeah.
And where we got a lot of assists, if you watch our team play, what I consider to be assists, they don't necessarily show up on the score sheet, but we have a lot of pick goals, by guys setting great picks to allow guys to get their hands free. We have a lot of off-ball movement where we're pulling guys through and creating space for the Dodger to come through. So I look at those things like those are team assists more so than showing up on a score sheet as an individual one.
Another unique thing about the PLL is the shot clock and the pace of play and all that stuff. How do you guys factor that in? I know you had coached in college at Ohio State, Harvard, and a couple other places. And that was a big gap. I'd love to talk about that and joining the PLL. But as far as strategizing and coaching around this situation where a lot of the times you're running down the shot clock to a very short time, you don't see that a lot in high school and college. Would love to know your strategy around how do we get guys off in an efficient time so we actually have time to run an offense if that's how we're doing it.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man, that was probably the biggest learning moment for me coming back to the program, because we never had that, right? So we just had a full clock all the time. So, 60 seconds when you're just running 60 over and over again, that feels like an eternity. So I never felt like the game was always fast, but I never felt like you had to play fast even when you didn't want to, where coming in now, it's like, holy cow, like that 32 is so fast, especially off a face-off. I mean, it is like, if you're not pushing it or making good decisions, like you're just going to get hurt because you're going to give transition up the other way. So you have to learn how to play fast in the right moments and then manage the clock at other times, right? So there's times where you're better off just dumping it and getting your defensive personnel out to make sure you can't get burned in transition, right? But if you try to go to the goal and you turn it over in a tough spot and they pick up a loose ball and they're up and out and your middies are subbing, you're going to get killed in the long run.
Do you have the average possessions a game in the PLL? I've never looked at that stat, but it's got to be like 20 over college per team.
Oh, it's insane. Yeah, it's okay. Very high. I don't remember the numbers offhand.
Interesting.
And, the timing of it. And it's interesting too, because with the 32, sometimes the time of possession, even if a team dominates like 70% faceoffs, the time of possession might still be equal or very close to equal, just because, it's only at 32. And that was a big area for me coming in, so coming back to this, like I love to like strategize and I love to look at any areas to like just take advantage of or improve, or like areas that no one is focusing on. And, when I was running all the numbers and breaking down this team and, the league itself, I was just accumulating all this data and trying to just break it down. And I was like, well, we have, and arguably, and in my opinion, I think we're the best face-off guy in the league right now. And it's like, we're going to win balls. So we have to get really good at playing in that 32-second shot clock and learning how to do that. So there was a lot of things that we focused on with our conversations and our planning and our, basically game planning going into each week was focusing on that area. And I think we did a pretty good job overall. And I think next year we'll be much better at it. And, but I think that's an area that in the past, I think guys are getting better there. But I think in the past, some people kind of threw that time away, or just kind of just said, we're not gonna really make this a focus. But it's like, man, give me the ball 70% of the time. I'm gonna take full advantage of that.
Yeah, it's so interesting to break the game down that way. I don't think a lot of coaches. I don't want to speak for a lot of coaches, but I think sometimes you deal with a situation where the coach isn't changing the play style of the
Yeah.
team
Yeah.
around what you have, and then there's even a strategy within that, because if you have a 70% face-off guy, don't you want to be pushing it more a little
No doubt.
bit, right? Because you're going to
And then
get
there's
it
then there's
potentially.
then there's a whole other layer too, and it's like depending on how the game is going and who we're playing and how it's like then you're making decisions on who's taking wings, right? So it's like if you're winning the majority of them, you want to think more of an offensive minded where you don't have to sub as many guys out of that 32, right? So if you have the ability and the capabilities to put two offensive minded guys out there versus 1-1 or, two D, a D midi and a pole, it's like, your whole game plan changes. And that's where it gets, then you start getting in the weeds of just the big picture stuff. And,
Yeah.
those are the conversations that we have as a staff, all the time.
I love the emphasis on two-way players, especially for like a D midi perspective, man. They're so unsung when it comes to just like not showing up in the scorebook. But based on what you're telling me, if you had a really good D midi that could play offense and take advantage of matchups, that's awesome.
No doubt. No doubt. I mean, I think that's where a guy, he was hurt, the entire year, but like Sammy English, I think he's a guy that has that ability to, you know, take some, he's great off the ground, great on wings, great between the lines. I don't know exactly what end of the field he's going to like pan out to be better at, but I think he's a guy that if he can play some defensive runs for us and then keep some offensive middies on the field, he can be a huge piece to what we're trying to do. And I think Tevlin has that ability too. Unfortunately for us with Merle going down, Tev had to take really the lion's share of being the short stick D midi, right? We leaned on him for everything. One as a leader, but he was gassed after every game for good reason. And I think when we get Merle back in the lineup, that allows Tevlin to have a little extra runs and be able to spend some more time on the offensive end for us.
I asked Kip Turner, the last guest we had on the show last week, this same question. I want to get your thoughts on it. I mean, you've got guys who are the best in the sport, that you're coaching, not just the best on the team, no, the best players that are in the world right now playing. How do you go about improving those guys? Or do you have to change up how you coach a top 1%er to a guy who obviously comes in and needs maybe some work? He's a young guy, something like that.
Yeah, it's it's funny because I wasn't sure, how it was going to be. I'm sure each group is different, right? And I think to your point, I think each individual is different. So if you have a veteran guy that's been around for 10 years and then you're looking at a rookie or a second year guy, I think their approach is going to be a little bit different. But what I found this year with these guys, and granted the majority of them it's a young group. But when you get to that 1% and you get to the guys that are at the top of the game, like they want to be great and they want to continue to be great and they want to be better in every aspect, and when I played this game, like I listen to anybody and everybody, no matter what, and it's like, if I can take any piece of feedback or I can take any nugget and I can just improve any area of my game, I'm going to do that and be open-minded to that. And I think where our group was unique is, with the staff where all three coaches were longtime players in the league, right? So you got guys that have lived it, and I think that the respect level of our players coming into that, I think they want to listen, right? Because it's like, we've lived it, we did it, we had success, and I think it's part of it is just in the approach that you take with these guys. And I think at the end of the day, I was like blown away by like how much these guys wanted to learn. And I think part of that is like not necessarily like overcoaching, but it's like watching film and being like, hey man, like you're here. If you watch this, like you missed or you didn't have success because you were there. And it's like, this is where you should be. And if you can, be a little proactive and moving without that ball on your stick or, whatever it is, and getting to this spot early, next time you're going to be in a position where you're going to have a much better opportunity to score a goal. And they're like, oh, I never thought about it that way. It's just a small example of things. But I think when you show guys and it makes sense, like if you can make it make sense to them, they're going to buy in immediately. And I think, our group was great with that.
I have to say Ryder Garnsey's probably one of the more unique play styles in the league right now. And I just enjoyed watching him. But from an offensive coach's perspective, how do you go about having him work within the offense? Because it's a very unique style of play. I'm just interested. You got a lot of great players, but Ryder always sticks
Yeah.
out to me as just being unique.
Yeah, Ryder, he's definitely a unique player. I had my call with Ryder yesterday, and we had a great chat, and um, it's cool to hear what he says because he's a college coach at Notre Dame, and he sees the game, he's coaching the game, he's coaching the best players. So it's kind of funny sometimes where um, you see a guy and it's like we talked, and I was like, man, I wish you would have been a little more assertive with the ball in your stick this year. You didn't. I don't feel like he was dodging as much as he normally would, and I think he had days where he either had a ton of success or days where he was a little more quiet. This season we talked about that a little bit, and in my mind, I'm like, dude, I think that you could be an absolute menace as an off-ball player. Like I think that he's got such great hands and the ability to handle the ball in tight spaces, and he reminds me not the way they play, but like their ability and the way they handle the ball so much to Kevin Lavelle. He reminds me of Kevin Lavelle, and I played with Kev for years, and Kev was an inside guy, loved to be on the crease, and he just was so slippery off ball, and you could throw him anything, right? He'd catch it at his feet, and same type of goals, right? Between the legs and shuffle shots. And I mean, anywhere you put that ball, he could just catch it and bury it. And, I talked to Ryder about that. And I'm like, dude, I want you to watch some old Lavelle clips. I want you to go back and, watch that as you're getting older. I think that could be another piece and like another layer to like your style of play. And I think if he can incorporate a little bit of that, off ball stuff, and it's funny going back to that point of like being coached. He's always been the player to have the ball in his stick.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think, this year it's like we had a Malloy and a Kavanaugh, and you got two guys that have to have the ball in their stick, right? And it's like now we need to
define have to.
From him.
Define have to. I love this concept and just breaking it to pieces. They have to start with the ball.
Not have to, just their style of play. They create, right? So Cav is a creator. Cav can break his guy down. He can beat his guy. He can draw a double. That helps our offense, right? Cav can beat his guy and get his hands free for a shot if a double doesn't come, right? So like good things come. Like Malloy, he's probably, him and O'Neal are probably the biggest, strongest attackmen in the league right now, I would say, right? And Malloy's a bit more of a head down dodger. So short time on the clock. I mean, there's no secret there. Malloy's the guy picking the ball up, and he's going to go and he's going to try to either, get his hands free for a shot or draw us a double and try to get us a look. I think, Malloy is not a guy who's back cutting people and,
Gotcha.
and working off ball. I mean, he's a guy that has to, in order for him to have success, he has to have the ball in his stick. So again, I think that's part of evolution of year over year when you get a different team and, who the personnel is. And that's our job to kind of manage that and tweak things. And I think a big part of our group was we had a ton of new pieces, and I told Ryder, I said, it's interesting, man, when I reflect on the season, I think it's harder to be a guy like Ryder in this setting than it is to be a new guy because Ryder knows what he knows about himself and the style of play that he's always played. And he's been part of this organization for, 4 years, 5 years. And now you plug in all these new pieces around him. And a lot of these guys don't even know any better, right? Half these guys don't know what the expectations are. They're rookies. They're
just trying to survive.
So like now he's like, wait a minute, like I got to figure this out. And it's like, really, those guys should be kind of playing off him. And I think Ryder did an exceptional job this year of, kind of being a role guy and being a leader down there. I mean, he was a great vocal leader for us on the offensive end of the field. And, I really, I mean, he was a huge piece of that down there. And I think, him and Cav have a really unique connection with their Notre Dame, connection there. And I think he knows how to wrangle Cav in when he gets all fiery and, he knows how to just kind of get him refocused. And I think he just was just like a nice piece from Malloy down there too. And, those guys didn't even know each other coming into the season.
Couple quick more PLL questions. How much do you guys focus on riding? I've heard a ton about transition and the way that we want to get up the field. Obviously, Kavanaugh was a great rider at Notre Dame, and there's a plethora of guys, obviously, that were really great at that. But how much focus do you guys put on that in the PLL?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a ton. I don't know what the other coaches, what their mentality is. I mean, it's definitely an area of focus. It's definitely something we talk about. What's interesting though is that the game is also so fast, and with the shorter field, where they basically took the middle of the field out, um, there's not as much opportunities, in my opinion, to have sound rides. But also, the personnel's so good. Like when you look at a clear, most teams are clearing at super high percentages, right? So, like, it's not like in college where you have like that one close D guy that's a liability with the ball in his stick. Everybody is a threat to just carry and get up and out. So I think from just my opinion on it, I think rather than spending too much time or having personnel that maybe shouldn't be out there trying to ride, I think you're better off getting your defensive personnel out there and getting set for once everybody's up and over. That's just kind of my take on it.
Yeah, the risk reward isn't there. If it's in the 95 and above percent, right, it just doesn't make sense.
It just doesn't. Obviously, you want your attackman to ride, but on the flip side of that, you don't have any subs on attack. You got three guys and they're playing the whole game. So
sure,
they got to be smart with their opportunities. There's definitely windows where, we talk a lot about like if the ball is off a shot and ricochets into the corner or something like that, like those are much more like better opportunistic areas to focus on a ride versus off trying to ride off a shot save or a loose ball in front of the cage that defensive personnel comes up with it. So let's say a shot is taken and there's no backup and they get the ball and it's on the end line. Those are the areas you want to focus on for your riding scenarios more so than the majority of the ride opportunities are going to just be off that normal gameplay back and forth.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of the basketball and lacrosse often get compared to each other, but in that shorter field, it does seem more like a basketball environment where I really would love to see one team be like, we're full court pressing all the time, just see how see what happens, Yeah. But I totally get the idea of dropping back.
Well, the other part of that too is like, here's another thing that people don't think about. And when you take away those 10 yards in the middle of the field and you try to 10-man, again, guys are really good. Poles now are shooting the ball, and like your likelihood of putting a shot on cage is much higher.
Yeah,
taking those 10 yards out of the middle. So, for us, it's definitely something we talk about and look at. I think, again, I think it's probably situation to situation. But that's a great question because I'd be interested to see how some of the other coaches approach things or, what. But I haven't really seen a team be like the riding team. You know what I mean? So,
it takes a lot of coordination. You know what I mean? It's just, anyways. Last PLL question here, man. The kind of outlook for 2026 for you guys. We'll try to keep it quick. We only have about 15 more minutes. Yeah. I want to get to some other things, but the outlook for the Redwoods in 26.
I think, I think it's great, man. I mean, I can't wait to get back. I mean, I think we learned a lot about ourselves, and I think, it showed. Like you said, we managed to pull those wins together and go to the semis. And I think we were peaking at the right time. I think going back to the point I made earlier, we're going to be going into training camp knowing our personnel. We're going to know exactly who we are, what we need to focus on, add a couple pieces, right? So it's finding the right guys in the draft and, adding a couple pieces where we feel it necessary. But we're going into camp now to build for the season on day one, where last year we were going into camp to figure out who our 25 guys were, and I think that it's a completely different mindset. So I think we're going to be set up to be a much better team out of the gate than we were this year. And even though we got those 2 wins early, we were by no means the team that we were, 7 games in. So I think that changes everything, from the landscape of us going in. I think it changes our approach. I think it changes the conversations that we have about our personnel as well. So in the style of play that we're going to be able to come in on day one, where I feel like our offense kind of evolved over time. Our defense was the mainstay, right? Those guys were all back for the most part. A couple of short stick D middies in there. But that was a core group for us. And, the offense kind of shifted and evolved along the way. And I feel like now we know like what we want to do, where we want to be.
Awesome. All right. Well, I want to talk some other topics here.
Sure.
We'll kind of speed through them if we can. But as often is the case, we'll probably have to have another episode.
I'll be short-winded on these.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk Ohio State. They finally broke through this past year. It seemed like they got the monkey off the back a little bit. I know that they didn't win the one at the end of the season, but they got closer than they have been. What was the difference for them?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I think they've been really close. I mean, not that long ago they went to the championship. So I mean, I think they've been there more than maybe you're giving them credit for. I think that last year was obviously a great run. I think they had a really just unfortunate matchup with Notre Dame. That was just a tough draw. I mean, it is what it is, the way it shook out. It's tough to play those guys twice in a season and try to beat them twice. So I think that was unfortunate for those guys to end things the way that they did. And I think they're doing a great job, man. I think Nick's doing an outstanding job. Hard not to love Ohio State when you're a high school kid and you come in for a visit. I mean, they got that brand new facility.
Have you been over there?
Oh yeah, many times. It's it's great, man. So
it looks awesome from
the facility's great. I mean, just the way that athletes get treated at Ohio State, it's second to none. But it's interesting because the whole college landscape is changing with the NIL stuff and the money that's coming in. And I know you want to talk about Bresh, but it's. I mean, look at what UNC did this year with their 27 or their 27 class that they have lined up, right? I mean, they have. I don't know where they're at now, but I know at one point they had 7 5-star recruits coming out of the gate, and it's impressive. So I think the game is going to be forever different, for better or for worse, and what that's going to exactly look like is TBD.
Yeah, are you keeping your ear to the ground with the recruiting, and all of that stuff through Resolute?
Yeah, of course.
So okay. Yeah, I would love to talk about Resolute here as well, but just kind of piggybacking off that NIL stuff and the players that you have coming through, Resolute that are going off to play college. Like, what's your thought process on the whole scene, quote unquote?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it definitely impacts like what the schools are able to offer these guys, like whether it's just in general or in addition to their scholarship. And each school is uniquely different, and I think that's going to just continue to be ever changing, and there's going to be schools that are going to have a ton of money to throw around, and there's going to be schools that just don't. And it's unfortunate that something in our sport comes down to kids making decisions on money, but I guess that's just the natural progression of the way sports go. But I just finished with I had the 25 class. So I have the current freshmen. That was the last group that I have. I'm back down coaching the 28s now. But I mean, I had a phenomenal group. I think it was probably the best group that we had come through. And, we had some really high level guys and 2, top 50 kids. And, and ironically,
what were their names?
Ohio State. They both ended up at OSU.
They both ended up at OSU.
Yeah, they both ended up.
Right.
But I think part of that.
You doing some work there, Coach?
No. I take a very unbiased approach when it comes to my guys. Going on to the next level. I think that's really important. And I think at the end of the day, it's just we're kind of kids in Ohio are kind of on an island a little bit, But also, it's like if you grew up here, Ohio State athletics is like you see it all the time, and it's like it's hard not to. Be an Ohio kid and not be excited to go to Ohio State. And then when you look at, okay, now it's a state school and the tuition dropped and you throw a little bit of money in there and you throw a little NIL money, you start figuring the things out. It's like, well, financially it makes sense. And it's like, if you're happy here, it makes sense for some of these kids to stay here. And then you get other kids that want to go and, they want to live life a little bit, explore and get out of Ohio. So I think, I think that's great. And we encourage that big time here.
Yeah, I don't want to say I'm in a non-hotbed area. I'm not in I'm in Virginia, just to put it out there. But Ohio, I definitely farther out west and just farther out on the kind of adoption curve a little bit. But how's it going in Ohio when you see it on the ground and you see the high school game? Is it flourishing? Is it kind of stagnating or?
No, it's booming, man.
Okay.
I mean, I would say that we are probably size wise. I mean, I would say definitely, if not in the top 10, definitely top 20, from a club perspective. And, we do a lot of things and have things that other clubs don't have, meaning, we're in 4 cities here. So we're in Toledo, Cleveland, Cincinnati, and then our home base is here in Columbus. And we have 2 indoor facilities here. So we have where I'm currently at right now, my office. We have a big 12 office space facility, and then we have 2 training fields that are connected to it. And, this is a full-time lacrosse facility, which is pretty cool. I never thought would exist here. And then on the other side of town, we have a 74,000 square foot indoor complex. So a massive place. Basically, the easiest way to describe it would be 3 ice rinks. So 3 full ice rinks with glass all the way around, but we have turf on all 3. So beautiful facility. We have a bar, we have a weight room in there, and we host tournaments and events. But we have the biggest box program in the country because of that. Wow. So now we're offering the ability for our kids to play year round. And I think
what city?
As of recent though, it's shown. So like I don't think that we're the anomaly anymore. Like my 28 team finished the number 2 team in the country this year. So
okay.
If you would ask somebody 5 years ago if an Ohio team could finish in the top 10, people would say you're crazy. So, when we're out there competing with and, this year beating some of those usual suspects, I think it says a lot about, just where Ohio lacrosse is and, the direction it's going.
Yeah. Well, what city are you guys in?
Columbus.
Okay, Columbus. Okay, so right there. Of course, you've been there then to the Ohio State facility.
Pretty much all the home games, and especially now, it's like great opportunity for me to go and see these college guys. Getting ready for the draft.
Dude, I love Van Buren. Is it? Am I saying?
Yeah, Bobby.
Oh my God! Yeah, if you can't tell, I'm a defensive coach, but yeah, dude, he's sick.
Yeah, BVB, he's a beast, man.
Yeah. What do kids learn from box that they don't learn from the field game? I know it's almost like an epidemic. The amount of
podcast,
yeah,
for me to talk about that. I mean, I think it's I think it's the best thing in the world for kids, and I think what's interesting is you're going to see guys that are phenomenal field players that disappear in a box, and then you're going to see other guys that are average field players that thrive in a box, and then you'll see everything in between that. But I think that it offers an opportunity for a kid that, maybe a defenseman who's like, whatever, is a field player, and then he gets a shorty and he's just like an unreal athlete and has a ton of success in the box, and he's flying high and he's feeling really good about the winter he had. He goes directly into spring with a whole new approach and a whole new mentality. And, I think that when you take a pole away, I think the biggest, in my opinion, the 2 biggest growth factors are D guys that learn to win with their mouths, so communicating, and win with their feet. So now you hand them a pull back after a winter of over communicating and, not being able to cheat it with a long pole. They're that much better as a defensive player. And then offensive guys learning how to play in tight spaces and make decisions faster. And also like learning that, when there's a window like this to throw a ball into, like that guy's open. And I think the only way you learn that is in box. And, I think it teaches guys to work off ball and just build that confidence to handle the ball in tough spots. And then also handle contact, man. Like you have to finish in front of the goal in box. Like you have to get to hard spots. You have to, shoot good shots. And those come from taking hits, man. And I think when you get beat up all winter and then you get to all that space and you're looking at a much bigger goal, it's easy.
Yeah, I never played box. I'm interested though, man. Is it toughness or strength that they need when they come in there?
I think it's like any style of lacrosse. It's all the same, right? Like you could be really fast and be successful. You could be tough as they come, and nobody wants to come near you. Strength definitely helps, and I think in any sport, right? So
yeah, it sounds like it helped you, man. When I watched some of your highlights and saw you in box, man, you were toughest guy out there, it felt like.
Listen, I was never the prettiest player, but it's like I could use the tools that I was given, right? So it's like if I could if I could set some mean picks for guys and let the guys that can score goals, I'm happy to be that guy. If it's playing defense and hammering a few guys into the boards, I love doing that too. So
Love it.
I was a hockey guy growing up, so like naturally for me, when I found the box game, I fell in love, man.
Yeah. Hockey guys, it's interesting as I get a young kid in and I see kind of how he plays. One of my first questions is, "Hey, do you play any other sports, man?" It's always interesting to see like the dynamics between the kid that only plays basketball to the kid that plays hockey. And the hockey guys seem to have like the athleticism stuff figured out. I don't know what it is, but it always feels like they can cut and do some different things.
I think you've good body awareness, good body control, right, from being on skates. But I think where it's even more correlated is it's the only other sport really that you have an implement where you control an object. So I mean, you think about it like golf, you make contact; tennis, you make contact; hockey, you're controlling the puck, right? Lacrosse, you're controlling the ball. And also it's that distance away from your body and getting comfortable with your hands in those positions. I don't think that not that I can think of that there's another sport like that.
Okay.
So when you look at those two, I think it just gives you a different mindset a little bit.
Okay. I definitely want to get to the fact that we haven't even touched on the face-off position, and you were a great face-off guy in your own right. So I just from a skill development perspective, what are you doing with your face-off guys? And then also when it came to your playing career, who gave you the biggest fits and why?
Yeah. All right. So you're going to love this. I actually literally just had this conversation with my brother. Punching bag, the speed bags, like the boxers, like the speed bags where just like pop, 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 pop. Best thing ever for a face-off guy. So like any young face-off guy out there, like I tell every single guy, go get a speed bag. And my father was a boxer. So growing up, I had one of those and I never thought much of it. And when I went away to college, I took it and threw it in my house. And I was always like good at it as a kid. And then I started getting back into it, when I got a little bit older, and it's something that I just carried through and continued, as I got older. And there was a point where I moved and I took it off the wall and I put it away for a while. And then as a pro, I found it, put it back up and started using it at my facility. And it's like, dude, it's incredible from eye-hand coordination to timing to just working all of the muscles that you use as a face-off player. I think any lacrosse player really, but I think ultimately face-off guys, just doing everything in tight with your hands and, away from your body and working that shoulder strength and your arm strength. So that's my cheat code for any face-off guy out there.
Love
Get
that.
yourself a speed bag and, get that for Christmas or your birthday and go to work, man. Watch some videos and work on your timing and figure it out. It'll translate over to great success. I promise.
Love it.
On that. And then, from a competitive standpoint, yeah, man. I mean, what's interesting, I saw you send that question and it was like, I had so many guys that I battled with, man. I had just so much respect for the guys I played against. And, in my era, there wasn't a ton, there was a lot of turnover, but like there was always like, the 6 guys or so that were just around for a long time. And, it's such a limited number of players in that spot. And like now you look at the league and, when you see the guys like the, TD and Nardella and, Trevor and those guys battling, like it's always going to be a battle, and it's always fun to watch those guys compete. And even when they're competitive and, maybe, have moments where they don't like each other, I think there's still so much respect within that platform. And I think it's the only position that is really like that where it's personal, like
It's like a club.
Yeah, but it's just personal too, because it's like at the end of the game, everybody knows who won that matchup, right? And like what impact he had. And I mean, the guys that I always had just great battles with were, Grenlian was around for a long time in my era, and I felt like the two of us were always kind of top of the food chain going at it. And Jeff Snyder was another guy that we competed with, and Eck, I mean, just it felt like the 4 of us were just around for a long time, and just battling, and it was interesting too, like in my early years back when there was like an actual true Western Eastern Conference, right? A lot of people forget that, but the Western Conference only had 4 teams, so we played every single team 3 times a year.
Oof.
So then we had preseason, and then you had to play teams in the playoffs. So like there were times where you play the same guy 5 times. So like you want to talk about like taking a competitive, thing and making it personal. Like we would battle, man. And I was just, It was fun, man. I like that position just based on, I love team sports, but I love the little moment of that one-on-one within the team sport.
Yeah. I guess I'm moving outside of the one-on-one now, but when you tie in kind of the face-off unit as a whole, I'm interested in how do you win the face-off if you don't have a great face-off guy? I guess is my question, right? Getting the wings involved more so than saying, "Hey, just run and go get the ball." Like, talk a little bit.
I think anymore, it's you're just not going to have success. I think face-off guys are so good at taking the ball anywhere that they want if they're winning, right? Like if like let's say I'm winning 80% of my face-offs, I know I'm going to win the clamp every time. It's really hard to game plan around it just because guys have the ability to just go anywhere that you're not, so it's like you have to have a face-off guy that compete. If you don't have a face-off guy that compete, you're just not going to win. You're just not. I mean, it's just you're just not going to. Even if it's like you send a pull out there, it's like, cool, I'm going, like you're going this way, I'm going that way, so
Okay.
I think guys are just too elite at this point.
Yeah, the most high profile game or just run was that Notre Dame run where they really didn't have a great face-off guy, but they would double pull the wings and they would like try to muck it up, and they actually did, which to your point, like that doesn't happen a ton.
You could be creative. I mean, you could try to limit, your opportunities against you, and I think two pulling is probably the way to go. Two pulling and just try to create chaos. I think the best advice I give guys is you want to make that face-off guy as uncomfortable as possible. So like if you watch video, if we're talking college, for instance, and you know that guy loves to go out the front, well, take that away and make him go out the back, right? So like make him go somewhere he doesn't necessarily want to go. He's comfortable going there, but he doesn't want to go there, and it's like if you can force a guy to throw the ball backwards to the goalie, now you're taking time off the clock and, it puts you in a good position, Okay. So it's like, those are things that we talk about, like not necessarily off the riding game, but like in the PLL, for instance, it's like if we can have guys win the ball back and throw back, that's a win for us. Because now by the time they get it over, we're looking at, under 15 on the shot clock by the time they're getting into an offensive set. So, that counts that's almost like winning the face-off, right?
Yeah, it's a great answer. All right. This has been a great conversation, man. I did want to get to one piece that I saw on YouTube. It was a quick clip. It was of you getting interviewed while I guess there was a goal that happened on you guys. It was Quint. Take me through that. Like what that 5-10 seconds where you kind of just walk away.
Well, I don't know. I it's one of those where honestly, like I'm all about, I understand everyone has their job to do, right? And I'm all about like the in-game interviews, but it's like, you shouldn't be interviewing a coach in the middle of a game. And it's like, we're losing. I think at that point we were losing by 4. And my back's against the wall in a must-win game, and they just score a goal, and it's like, man, I don't really have anything to say to you, so I'm just gonna walk away. Like I'm trying to work right now. That would be like somebody walking into your office right now and trying to have a conversation with you while you're working, and we're having a conversation. Like you just don't do that, and it's like, I get it, man. Everyone's got a job to do, but pick a better time. Like you want to talk to me at halftime, you want to talk to me after a game, you want to talk to me at a timeout, like that's great, man. But I'm working in the middle of the game and I'm not doing my job and I'm not being fair to my players if I'm going to sit over here and talk to you when they need me.
Yeah. So you know what? I'm with you 100%. I do think that a lot of sports have looked at the PLL and copied that. Like baseball never used to do the on-field microphone, like where they would talk with the guy, but you see sometimes they're like messing up plays because they're talking to the booth and stuff like that. So it's interesting, man. But
yeah, it's like literally, I mean, it'd be one thing if I'm winning by 4 or 5.
Sure.
But like literally, like I'm down.
Do you remember the question?
We came back from down 5 to win that game, and it was a must-win game. Like I got to keep my head in that game, or I'm not doing my job. So the same way I hold my guys accountable, I got to hold myself accountable.
Do you remember the question? I don't remember, but I remember when he asked it out, and I saw your response. I was like, that question, Quinn should never have asked that question.
It was a bad question.
It was.
It was basically teeing us up for why we're losing the game, and I was like, I'm not. I was like. Again,
that's awesome, man.
I get Quint's doing his job and all that, but it's like ask better questions and
it was a leading question.
Ask me at a better moment, man. If you want an answer, it's like you gotta the answer I was gonna give him was not gonna be an answer that he wanted to hear or TV wanted to hear, so I just walked.
Yeah, I love it, man. Coach Kelly, appreciate you very much. Got to have you back. This has been a great convo.
Yeah, man. Anytime. Thanks for having me.